Alrighty, what's up everybody? Welcome to the first episode of PYRA's own cup stacking podcast, but that's way too many words, so we're just going to call it the PYRAcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PYRAcast. My name is Kian Lynch. I will be your host, joined by my co-host, Mr. Ethan Jones himself. And today's guest host, our first guest host of the PYRAcast. We plan to have one every single week, but just gonna have to figure that out through time. But at the very least for today, we have none other than Mr. Evan Cloud joining us. Evan, thank you so much for being here. Guys, how we doing today? Doing good, and unfortunately, I may or may not have forgot to switch an audio device. So, oopsie doodles, they may or not have heard of you yet. Try one more time.
And I'm doing okay as
well. Oh, okay, we're fine. All right, and Evan said he was doing great, FYI. Professional podcast, by the way. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. This is something that I wanted to do for a while, and I have done previously with varying degrees of success, but I wanted to actually bring a more stacking-related podcast back up into the scene because I felt like we just needed one. I felt like we all need some time to just vent and talk about things. And I feel like this is going to be a good place to do it, especially with the community that we have, especially with everything that's been going on in and outside the scene. We got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about today. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to Evan for making it here today. It took a couple of tries. We were actually planning on this a couple weeks ago, but Evan and Ethan, like we were trying to figure out times because now all of us are working because we are indeed adults. So figuring that out was a little bit tricky, but here we are. We figured it out. But to start off the podcast, and I think something that we'll probably do starting off every single episode of the podcast, I want to talk about a ranking system. Now, you guys all probably know that we have something called the PPR, the PYRA point rankings, and this is an acclamation of points to determine the top ranked stackers in the world under PYRA tournaments, or under PCS tournaments. And the point of the PPR, the PYRA point rankings, is to ensure that the top stackers are rewarded for being the top stackers. So, for example, for our next tournament, we're going to have cash, like for our next in-person tournament, we're going to have cash put aside to help with travel funds for like likely our top 8 stackers, so that way they don't have to take that out of their pockets or have to take it out of their prize pool just to make a tournament. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to anybody. So we're trying to build kind of a travel fund to ensure that they have money set aside. So that's kind of what the power rankings are for. Now, we're going to be doing something a little bit different to what the point rankings are, the PYRA point rankings are, and we're going to be setting up the PYRA power rankings. This is going to be our own personal opinions on who we think the top stackers currently in the world are right now. So, before we start, I am going to spoil you all a little bit because to probably nobody's surprise, Keng is indeed number one on all 3 of our lists. I know, absolutely shocking, mind-blowing information. I know, but chat, if you would like to, you guys can go ahead and take a couple of guesses as to who do you think is on the rest of the list. I'm about to reveal it in a second. But Evan, you previously were the number 1 ranked stacker on the PYRA point ranking system. And you held that over Keng. Now, mainly because you went to more tournaments than Keng did at the time. If he was at PYRA Cup First Strike, who knows what happens to that list. But do you think right now, because that tournament that you won, PYRA Cup First Strike, was an in-person tournament, we have yet to see Keng go head-to-head against another individual stacker at a PYRA tournament so far. Do you think if Keng shows up to PYRA Cup First Strike, do you think he takes that title away for you? Do you think anything changes?
Me personally, I will say yes. I think in any circumstance, Keng, no matter if it's online or in person, he's unstoppable. Mm-hmm. I think that, like for me, in-person tournaments, nerves really get the best of me. But to Keng, I don't think he knows what nerves are. I don't think he even has any nerves. So I really do think that Keng, if he does come to another in-person tournament, he will have all the confidence in the world, and he will definitely take that title away from me.
Yeah. Ethan, any comments on that? Do you think that there's like, do you think that in person, online, do you think that's going to change Keng Ian's performance and it change his spot in the rankings?
I don't think so at all. I think he'll hold on to that number one spot. Once again, I think Chen Yan is a man of he shows no mercy at all, and I think that in person, I think he'll be just as dominant as he is online.
And what about you, Ethan?
Well, I agree with Evan. Since Ian burst onto the scene back in 2014 with his second place overall finish at Worlds 2014, he has been the model of consistency. He really hasn't had a down year over the course of the past past 3 years of stacking. He has been the unanimous best stacker in the world. And I could tell based on people who actually had the opportunity to see him compete in person, that were he to attend an in-person tournament with the head-to-head format, similar to what we see now in PYRA, that he would definitely be able to win that tournament as well.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll talk a little bit more about Keng Ian's reign of terror on the stacking world in just a little bit. But let's reveal our personal power rankings, and we'll all go over our reasons as to where people are going on this list. So if you're looking at the list, for starters, to absolutely nobody's surprise, yes, Keng Ian, unanimously number one stacker in the world. And then most of these lists are relatively the same, with the exception of Ethan's. Ethan, you go a little bit more further off than what Evan and I have. I think Evan and I have identical lists for everything except our number 5 stackers. So I guess we'll start there. So let's all share another similarity on this list, is that William Morel is in all of our lists. For myself and Evan, he's the number 2 ranked stacker in the world. And for Ethan, he's actually the number 5 ranked stacker, at least for what you gave me on your list. So let's talk about Aurel's performance at PCS Double Down. Obviously, top 4 finish, that's still extremely solid. You can't complain about that too much if you're Aurel, but I feel like there was still room where I felt like we were a little bit let down from Aurel, because you have this kind of wild card dark horse candidate with Tyler Hollis coming in. Obviously, it was a round 9. It was super close. One fumble costs Aurel. Actually, his timer malfunctioning, G5 moment, by the way, completely costs him that best of 9. There's so many different variables with how that match could have went, but overall, Aurel was kind of denied and almost, in a sense, robbed of a chance to meet Keng Ian for a chance at the tournament. So Aurel, obviously, he's still falling number 2, Keng Ian, regardless. Unless he straight up beat Keng Ian in the finals, I don't think anybody would have changed their opinions on that. But Ethan, you have him all the way down at 5th. So I guess we'll touch on that. Ethan, what brings Aurel that much lower down the list for you?
Well, I think one thing to consider is since in-person tournaments have returned from the pandemic, we have a very small sample size to work with. Obviously, William Morel is still an exceptional talent. In many people's eyes, he is still the greatest stacker of all time. He still has a very solid claim to that, although Ian is certainly making a strong case for that title as well. And it might seem a little taboo to put William at 5th on the list, considering he was able to win both juniors and the U.S. satellite.
But this isn't a power rankings for 2 warm-ups, 3 attempts competition. This is power rankings for PYRA competitions, or at least head-to-head competitions.
Right. And I do have to also consider his performance at PCS Double Down. Obviously 4th place is not easy by any stretch. But I do still believe that out of the 5 stackers on the list, I'm primarily basing this off of potential. And I think William is still an exceptional stacker. I just don't think he's too familiar with this format. And I think his performance really showed me that there is some room for improvement in terms of head-to-head competition, as opposed to the standard timed format that we've seen.
Now, I'm going to ask you kind of both this question. I'll phrase it to Evan first. We'll also touch on Tyler Hollis in just a second, because he is also on all of our lists. But Aurel, in person, online, do you think it makes that much of a difference for his performance? Do you think if PCS Double Down was head to head in person, would the results have been that much different? Evan, what do you think?
Personally, I'll say yes. I think Orel, if he was put in an in-person setting, I think he actually would have performed much better. I think that since Orel's been around for such a long time, he's used to stacking in in-person settings. He's not used to online, and so I think he's gotten so used to that setting that he knows how to control his nerves and to set boundaries for himself. And so, with that being in mind, I think Orel should have won if it was in person.
Okay. So you think that if this tournament's in person, do you think he beats Keng Ian in the grand finals, Orel versus Ian?
Potentially, yes.
All right. I like that. I like that. But obviously, PCS Double Down was not in person. I wish it was. But it was online. And it seems like Orel... I don't think it's like he's bad online. For start, like, let's just get that out of the way. Orel's one of the best stackers of all time, and he's still doing amazing, giving us amazing performances. Like, extremely dominant performance over Trey and whoever he had in the top 16. And then against Tyler, again, how much of that was really in his control in the sense of his timers just were not working when they needed to. And it's unfortunate, but again, this is just, the equipment, the lay of the land with how things go. But moving along, another stacker I'm really excited to talk about, number 3 in both myself and Evan's list, and number 2 in Ethan's list, Tyler Hollis absolutely balled out in his first PYRA debut in PCS Double Down, upsetting William Morel, of course, getting to the grand finals. He did get destroyed in the grand finals, but hey, who wouldn't have? It's Keng Ian. That was his turf, I don't think there's too much we can talk about Ian's performances because it's just so insane. But Tyler Hollis, man, oh man, did he have a great time. But it almost didn't happen like that. He was a little bit shaky in the group stage, 3-2 record, so he did qualify for playoffs. So he did make it through, just not as cleanly as a lot of people I think would have expected out of him. And then the same thing with kind of that shaky performance. We weren't sure if Billy Wilmoth would have caused like a catastrophically major upset in most people's minds. Like basically would have ruined everybody's bracket. But Billy pushed him a distance all the way to the round run, literally to the 1,000th of a second. Like, what else can you say about that? That was just pure insanity. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I really couldn't. And again, I feel like if we're going to talk about dark horse candidates, or if we were to expand this to a top 10, Billy is absolutely somewhere in that conversation. But because this is top 5 and we're talking about the best stackers in the world right now, I think with a top 2 finish, Tyler Hollis just has to be on your list at this point. But Ethan, you put him a little bit higher up. You put him over Orel and over everybody else except for Keng Ian. Tyler Hollis, was this kind of a flash in the pan performance for him, or do you think the bar only goes higher?
So first and foremost, I want to apologize to Tyler personally because all throughout the stream at PCS Double Down, I was counting him out, mentioning that he hadn't really competed in a head-to-head format. And I have to eat my words on this one because he ended up finishing second in the tournament. Obviously, Tyler has only competed in one PYRA competition so far. I have no doubt that we're an in-person competition. In fact, I think if it were an in-person competition, he would only dominate even more. Obviously, Keng Ian has always been a world beater, and it's difficult to imagine anyone could have beaten him at PCS Double Down. He was just on a tear that day,
Yeah.
and he's been on a tear for the past couple of years now. But I really like what I saw from Tyler. He was very composed, had a lot of poise, and I think we're an in-person competition. I wouldn't be surprised were the results the same.
Yeah, and I guess as for myself, and I'm sure Evan will share a little bit of the same sentiment, it's just like I had very high hopes for Tyler. Like when I heard he was competing, I was so excited because I knew how much potential Tyler has as a stacker. I know for him, I only feel like he can continuously get better and better. And I feel like his performance has only gotten better and better. Like just before PCS Double Down, he won Hotlanta, like just won the entire tournament and only lost in cycle by like, I think it was like 100th or 2.02 or something in cycle SOC. It's like Tyler is just so good. And I feel like I was so happy to see him in the grand finals as well. Not only because I wanted to see more upsets, I didn't want to see all the same people show up. I also felt like if there was somebody that wasn't a rail that could truly challenge Shen Kang Ian a little bit, it was Tyler. Sure, he lost 3-10 to Shen Kang Ian, but at the same time, there were so many of those rounds that could have gone the other way had it been just a smidgen of a second faster here or there, where he may have played it a little bit safer. Like, I felt like Tyler really pushed Shen Kang Ian to the limit there. It didn't show up in the result, but if you actually watched that, you were like holding your breath for basically every single round that you saw. And Evan, obviously you have a little bit more personal experience. Tyler was the one that knocked you out of the tournament, top 8. So I'm going to kind of transition out of Tyler and also transition to you, because our number 4 pick is unanimously, including yourself, Evan Cloud. So Evan, I still feel like it's very an emotionally based thing for you, but I feel like once you get on a roll, bro, you are so fucking good. It's really hard to beat you. And I saw that, because if you guys don't remember, at PYRA Cup First Strike, I bopped Evan Cloud down to the lower bracket. And he had to win, I think it was 5 or 6 straight matches to not only get back to me in the grand finals, but win the entire tournament. And he did. He did exactly that. He won everything in the lower bracket, was down 0-2 against Naoki, and reverse swept him. Like, there's so much I want to say more about that run, but like, obviously, I think it would actually also be higher up in this list if it were not the situation that kind of happened with PCS Double Down on the day of playoffs. But I'll let you fill in a little bit more, because you were a little bit late. We had to do your match last, but you were there for your match, and we also gave you a little bit of time to warm up. What happened on playoffs day?
Yeah, so let's just say that I overslept a little bit. My alarm never went. My alarm never went off. It's funny. I mean, that's the first time that actually ever happened to me. But yeah, I wake up and it's already like 10 past like PYRA starting, and so I start freaking out, and so I thought that I missed my chance. No, but then I ended up getting the message from you. But no, I think with warming up for only like 5 or 10 minutes, I think really affected my performance, because for me personally, I think I need all the time in the world to practice and to warm up. It takes me a little bit longer just because my muscles tend to get stiff sometimes, especially when I wake up. And so, yeah, I think just that it really affected my consistency as well. So I think that's why I got eliminated in the round of 8.
I will say, though, to give you credit where credit is due, one of the stackers I was considering putting on this list was Karifullah. And the only reason I didn't is just like how Karif just completely missed the mark at Double Down. Like, he had the perfect opportunity to make a deep run, his own dark horse run in the tournament, and fell short to you with 5 minutes of practice. Like, that was just kind of unacceptable to me. And I mean, I love Karif, don't get me wrong. I root for Karif every single tournament he competes in. But that was just like kind of where he missed the mark for me. And again, it's also like a huge praise to you. Like, you beat him, I think it was like 5-2 in your match against him with what, 5 or 10 minutes of practice that we gave you. So like, you, even if you were unprepared, you were still prepared enough for the competitor you had against you. And I think once you level yourself with the competition, that's where you really strive. I think the other thing as well is just like the nerves, the mentality. You mentioned it yourself with like in-person competition, you know, like you actually have to be able to read your opponents and you have to know how you're going to match them. From my personal experience, I just came back from Oceanside, and Andrew Dale actually showed up to Oceanside. Like, that was fun. And we did the head-to-head competitions there. So I knew that if I wanted to win anything, I'd have to beat Andrew. So I was already dreading that a little bit because I know how good Andrew Dale is. And sure enough, he beat me in every single category, which hurt my pride a little bit, but, you know, I'll take what I can get. I was close in one of them, so, I'll take that. I didn't expect to win, and I was just there to kind of have fun because it was a celebration type thing more than an actual competition. So, yeah, I can't complain too much. And I guess one of my honorable mentions before I get to our final picks was Andrew Dale. Ethan, I know Andrew was originally on your list, and then you moved him out. Go ahead.
I had to, so when I was deliberating over whether to put Andrew or William on the list, I think really it ultimately came down to how much weight I put on their performances officially and, their unofficial accomplishments. And, they obviously checked the box for both. But I just feel that William had a better showing at PCS Double Down, and I just feel has more potential in this format. But Andrew is still amazing. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
yeah. And I think that's a good conversation to talk about. And the difference between online tournaments and in-person tournaments, like, it was night and day for me to see it. Because Andrew Dale, online tournaments, I was so unimpressed. I was just like, how is, this is one of the best stackers in the world. And he goes out top 8. Like, I was surprised he made playoffs at all with some of his performances. It was just so questionable. Gets 3-0'd by, I think it was both Karif and Ian. Like, you got to get something on the board there. So yeah, there was just a lot of questionable performances from him. But like, I go against him in tournament, he absolutely is destroying me. And everybody else, like, not to mention, like, he won the entire thing, obviously. And it just wasn't close. He was like so far ahead that day. So I think it could also just be down to the online, atmosphere of it all. But moving alongside that, let's move to our final round of picks. I would say our out of the box picks, because we all had a different answer for our 5th pick, because all of us, believe it or not, actually had 4 stackers all in this category: Ian, Aurel, Tyler, and you, Evan. And then all of us had a different person for either our 5th or, for Ethan's case, your 3rd. So I had Will Allen. Evan, you had Naoki. And Ethan, you went with Tyler Fano. So we're all going to talk about this. I guess I'll start. So Will Allen, for me, was my actual dark horse to win the tournament. If it was going to be anybody to actually upset Chen Keng Ian, and it wasn't Tyler Hollis, it was going to be Will Allen. I feel like Will was just so dominant in the group stage. I was so excited to see what he was going to be able to do in playoffs. Obviously, personal situation happens. Can't talk too much about it, but, he couldn't show up. That's the end of the story. And I felt like if he was actually there on the day, I felt like he really could have challenged Darrell to make top 4. Like, I feel like that's where the Battle of the Wills really could have gotten spicy. So it was unfortunate that I wasn't able to see that happen. And I feel like Will has probably some of the most potential right now to be an actual top 5 stacker in the world right now. But Evan, let's go with you. Let's just go down the line. You have Naoki as your 5th. Explain what puts Naoki at number 5 for you.
Well, so with my picks, I picked them based off of not only consistency, but also with success in PYRA so far. And I think with Naoki, I've had the privilege to face him, like what you mentioned at First Strike. Naoki, he is very tough to read. I think he can be fast at one point, he can be slow at one point, but he could also be doing that as sort of a trick. And I think that's actually very, very good in terms of like fooling your opponent. And I think with his performance in PYRA Cup or PCS Double Down, excuse me, I think that he has had a successful run so far. I think if I got eliminated in first strike by Naoki, I think he was going to go on to win the entire thing. He just had bad couple breaks. But as of right now, I just think that he is one of the most consistent stackers on this list. I think he's very dominant, and I just think he needs to have some luck at some point to be higher on the list. But right now, Naoki does deserve a spot, and I think number 5 fits him well.
Yeah, I agree. And as well, he got top 4 because he ran into Chen Keng Ian. How much can you really put that on him? Ian won the entire tournament. And I think Naoki did take a round or 2 off of him. So, hey, you can't beat on that too much. If you can take a single round off of Ian, hey, that's impressive. Speaking of people that have taken a round off of Ian, Tyler Fano is in Ethan's top 5. He's in Ethan's top 3 right now, actually. Number 3 on Ethan's list. Now, I know you also went with a little bit more focused on the potential of a lot of these stackers, and I do 100% agree. Tyler Fano's potential is extremely uncapped. Obviously, he's had a couple of good individual performances at other events, but PCS Double Down, same thing with Naoki, runs into Chen Keng Ian early on. What can you really do? How much can we really see of Tyler Fano with the spot that he was in? But Ethan, let's go more into detail. What makes Tyler Fano just so high up on your list?
Well, I think you put it quite eloquently, Kian, unlike me just now. But I did primarily base my rankings off of potential. I have had the amazing privilege to watch Tyler Fano compete in person, and he is just unbelievable. Just such an exceptional talent. At PCS Double Down, he had a good showing, a good steady showing. Again, Ian is just a brick wall. He's hard to take down. Um, but particularly in cycle, I'm just so amazed by Tyler Fana's just relentless speed and tenacity. Um, Again, we don't really have much of a sample size to work with here, so I really had to go with my gut with this one, and I just believe that Tyler Fano has a chance to be one of the next great competitors in this sport.
Yeah, I again 100% agree. I feel like the battle for top 5 stackers in the world is going to get really, really, paper thin coming soon, especially once PYRA starts hosting in-person tournaments. And I've got a little bit to talk about later in this podcast. But that is going to be our official rankings, kind of scuffed looking rankings for our power rankings. We'll probably do this once a podcast to see if anything changes with the people we bring on, to see if they have anything different they want to add. But that's our current listings. But yeah, that is our rankings for our completely brain farted. That's our rankings for episode 1 of the PYRAcast. But yeah, let's talk about Evan Cloud, our special guest host. And Evan, this is your moment. This is your time. This is where we actually want to talk about you, because one of the big things that people wanted to hear about when we were talking about like maybe starting up a podcast was personal stories about stackers, how they got started, some of their favorite moments in stacking, things like that. So Evan, this is where we're going to kind of open the floor to you. And I guess we'll start with a simple question. How did stacking come into your life? Where did it start for you?
Yeah, of course. So it all started back in 5th grade. We had a free day in PE class, and I managed to go into the storage closet. I snuck in there and found a box of speed stacks. And I remember I pulled them out, and just typical me, not knowing how to like properly stack. I was just stacking them up and down, up and down, up and down. But after that, after the period ended, I don't know, just like something hit where I was like, that was really fun to do. No, like stacking cups, just I don't know. It's something was special about it back then, and went home that day, talked to my parents about it, and they ended up buying me a set of cups. Um, and that's where it all started. I started stacking like every day, like I would say like 3 or 4 hours, and it got to a point where like my parents told me to stop to come eat dinner, and like and I would like ignore them sometimes too. But I think just from touching a set of cups in PE class made a huge impact on my life.
Wow. Yeah. It's a pretty similar story from where I started, because I also started in PE class. Ethan, I'm not sure about where you started, but it's basically the same story. What was that?
Summer camp.
Summer camp. Hey, it's all a little bit similar, but let's transition to the point of, okay, I'm just doing this because it's a lot of fun and I like goofing off and having fun, to, okay, I'm actually really good at this. I should start going to tournaments. How does it transition from being a hobby to being your end all be all to starting to compete? Where did that start?
Yeah, so when I started realizing that I was getting down to like 8 or 7 seconds, I started to realize that I thought that I had some potential in like being a really good stacker. And I remember when I first started, I would look up videos, and then I'd find like tournaments, like one for being example, the World Championships. My first stacking video that I actually ever watched was Steven Peruginen's 621, and I don't know. From that point on, I wanted to go to a tournament really badly, and so I kept on practicing until I got down to like once again 8 or 7 seconds, and then I was originally going to go to a tournament in 2014, but then I backed out. But then 2015 comes around, and I got invited to a local district competition. It was non-sanctioned. It was just kind of there, recreational. But I was the highlight of the tournament, and people just told me like, why aren't you like a competitor? Why aren't you going to more tournaments? And people would give me tournaments to go to, and we ended up going to them, and the rest is history.
I realized I wasn't muted. I was muted. I was getting a sip of Mountain Dew, and it all went south. But as I was saying, it's like, you're just so good. Everybody was like, bro, why are you not competing in real tournaments? Come on, big boy tournaments. So what was that transition like? Transitioning from like your local tournament to like the big boy tournaments, like Worlds or Juniors or something like that, or of course a PYRA tournament. You know, like what was the transition there for you?
Definitely nerve-wracking, because I knew that stakes were higher. The competitive level was a lot more difficult as well. And I remember my first like sanctioned tournament, I was as nervous as I could be, because once again I had that mindset of everything is, all the stakes are higher, the competitiveness is more difficult, and let all that get in my head. And I know I think I failed my first ever stacking tournament, but then after that, I think I just allowed myself to kind of clear my head, and my nerves have gotten a lot lower now.
Yeah, there you go. And nerves is just something for everybody, you know. Everybody has some form of nerves, unless you're just like a robot and you just don't have nerves, I guess. But when was the transition for you when you realized, oh, I'm actually like one of the best stackers in the world? Like, at one point, did you realize that you not only had the potential, but like you were there, you were actually one of the best? Like, what was that transition? Like, when did that happen, and what was it like?
Yeah, so when I started competing, I set for myself that if I want to be considered one of the best in the world, I got to be in the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing lower than that. I got to be at least 25th or higher. And Cowtown Stackdown 2016 came around, and I just completely dominated that tournament. Got extremely good times, including a 5:58 in cycle, which I didn't realize until people started pointing it out, that my performance in that tournament put me at number 23. And so when I came to realize that, obviously I was extremely excited, extremely happy that I met one of my longtime goals of being in the top 25, which makes me feel that I'm considered one of the best in the world. But also at the same time, it was also very nerve-wracking also, once again, because I think that with me being in the top 25 and being considered one of the best in the world, people expect more out of me. And I think with people expecting more out of me, and me knowing that, could also affect my performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. As well. Like, because that's so early on to like actually make that top 25. 2016. That was 6 years ago. It's not crazy to think about now.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So years pass by. You can only get better at that point, obviously. Keep competing and things. And then obviously 2021, PYRA rolls around. PYRA Cup All-Stars, your first PYRA tournament. And you were actually, I think, the thumbnail of the first match, you versus Ian, was, I think you were in that group for one of those matches. What was your first PYRA match like? What was going on there?
Well, I was more excited than I was nervous, actually, because this was actually my first ever competition where I got to test my consistency against some of the best stackers in the world. So, and I think that match against Keng, I was just super excited to face Keng for once. Sure, I may have lost pretty badly, but I mean, obviously there were some nerves, but not as much nerves. But it was definitely a experience to remember, being able to test my consistency against probably the most consistent stacker in the world.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like right now, it's just like he pops fours like it's nothing. It's like it's candy. It's actually kind of infuriating, like watching it too. It's like, could you just like mess up for like 10 seconds or something? Just
That's what I hope
once.
for sometimes.
Yeah.
He's like the Tom Brady of sports stacking.
Yeah, basically. So let's transition out of that real quick. And let's talk about PYRA Cup First Strike. Obviously, most people know now, you won the tournament. But it did not look like that at a lot of periods and times, with all due respect. So let's talk about actually what happens. I'm not sure how many people actually know this other than the people that were there. You're going through the group stage. You have the highest seeded group. It's you, Trey, and Ethan. Sorry, Ethan. Yeah, like Ethan performed so well it actually hurt him later on. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it. So Evan, you're doing relatively well in the groups. I think Trey actually placed first in the groups. I can't remember specifically what happened. And then something happens. You whack your hand back and you hit a pole, and the room goes silent. But like, what was going through your head like after that?
That was a big karma moment, if I'm going to be honest. But no, I hit the pole, and then my fingers just went straight numb, and they were hurting so bad to the point where I thought that like I was going to have to sit out for the rest of the competition because they were hurting that bad. And if I like touched anything, then like my fingers would like start to sting. It's one of those feelings, and it's horrible. But I think just all of that happened is because of emotions, honestly, because I think I set my goals too high for myself, and with Trey beating me, I think I let my emotions get the best of me and caused all of that to happen. But
Yeah, but I guess things worked out in the end as well, because you recovered from the injury, you came back, playoffs happens, you compete in the rest of the tournament, you win the entire tournament. But I want to start to the point where it didn't look like that was going to happen. First matchup is against me. And I'll be honest, I was expecting to get destroyed in this matchup. And I think for a period of time I think I only had like one round up against you. I think I was down like 1-2. It was first to 3 or something like that. And you were beating me pretty convincingly. And then I don't know, something just happened, and it was like those rounds started connecting. And I'm sure you get the same feeling. It's like you grind out some rounds, and then it just keeps going from there. Like you just keep rolling with it. But I know what happened in my head. I was just like, oh, okay, well, Evan was the biggest challenge for me in the upper bracket. I knew that myself. Not that the rest of the bracket was gonna be easy, but it was just like, I knew if I could beat Evan, I could definitely like go on to win the tournament. But what was going through your head like after you lose to me?
I was definitely angry at myself because I knew that my consistency in the first couple of matches were definitely very bad. I think that once again, I think me keeping in mind that like my hand actually hurts a little bit was causing me to like be careful, almost in a sense, to slow it down just a little bit. And I think that really affected me in that first few matches. And I'm pretty sure that's why I lost to you. It's just because I had way too many things rolling in my head, emotions, my hand hurting and all that. But I then realized that when I got to the lower bracket, I was like, I really need to just like not think of anything besides the cups and just stacking consistently. And I think doing that and taking it easy and doing what I normally do, which is just go with a flow that I know that works every time, helped me go on to be more successful in that tournament and win the entire thing.
Yeah. And then I guess I'll transition this to Ethan. Ethan, I think we kind of throw you in the deep end in a lot of different ways in that tournament, but because of how the tournament was seeded, you started in the loser's bracket, and because how it was also seeded in the matches, you had to face Evan Cloud round 1. So again, sorry about that. And the cards were also kind of stacked against you. But what happened with you? Because I was thinking like, okay, how am I gonna I have to go against Ethan round 1. How am I gonna beat him? But then I win that, and then you're probably pissed off. You get Evan round 1 after already losing to him twice in the round robin previously. So what was going through your head when you got Evan round 1?
Well, I more or less blame myself because I think I really Um, so what ended up happening was I knew I was trying to practice the format, and I was using Jesse's rhythm, and it was really consistent for me, and it ended up paying some pretty good dividends because I ended up in Group A. Um, Needless to say, Evan and Trey are two amazing competitors, and I just got like wiped. I got wiped off the floor with those two. Um, so I was 0-6 in that, and then we went to the tournament bracket, and I saw I had to go up against Evan again, who I had already lost to 3 times.
And
um,
in fairness, you did make that match close. I think you did take a match off of him, and it was first to win 2 matches.
I did take a match, yeah, and I was happy about that. I'm like, well, at least I didn't go winless this tournament.
There
but
you go.
but from that point forward, I was really amazed by Evan's performance that tournament, especially after sustaining that injury to his hand. Um, and I was a little bit checked out, but also I did my best, and it was a really fun tournament to attend, and a really fun format to compete with. So I was probably a little in over my head after I got into Group A, but it's how much
Yeah.
fun you have. That's really what counts.
I think if we had more people there, just in general, in person, the format would have been different, and who knows how things have changed. Speaking of the format, I kind of screwed myself over when it comes to the format because in the grand finals, we were trying to figure out how to set up the winner's advantage. How does the winner get advantage in the series? So it was kind of a choice between, did we want the winner to have just more space to compete? Did we want it to make a best of 5 in terms of matches? Or do we want to make it 2 best of 3s? And how it will work in 2 best of 3s is the winner only has to win, the person coming from the upper bracket only has to win 1 best of 3 to win the tournament, whereas the person coming from the lower bracket has to win 2. Now, if I had set it up to the person coming from the lower bracket has to win 2 best of 3s, I would have won the tournament because I was 2-1 up against Evan in terms of matches. So I was already in the lead. And then I completely threw the rest of it. And so I kind of handicapped myself. Like, I could have won my own tournament. I could have retired on that basis, but oh well. I was super glad that Evan won. Not only because the injury was like, I had no idea where I was going to put that trophy if I had won it. So I'm glad you were able to take it home. As well, like, that tournament was just so much fun in general. But moving alongside the kind of the story of how everything went from origins all the way to winning Power Cup First Strike. What I want to ask you, do you think, Evan, that your performance changes when it comes to in-person versus online? Because it looks, at the very least, like you're a lot more comfortable once you're in an in-person tournament setting. And, like, you can find your own groove a little bit better. But do you think it's any different?
I think it is, honestly. I think setting plays a big role for me in how I perform. Um, and it's kind of a shocker for me personally that I actually do better in person than I do online because I stack in my room most of the time, and so I'm used to being in my room and stacking. Um, and I've noticed that I get so many nerves like when I stack online, and it's really weird. But just something about in person and actually going up head to head with someone like with my own eyes is it kind of boosts my confidence for some reason, and I don't know, it's all a mystery for some reason.
Yeah. And I will say, like, latency comes into effect. It's like you're stacking when they say go, but the other person doesn't start for another, half second or second after you do, because they hear go at a different time, obviously, and the latency, the difference between your connection and their connection. So it's hard to sync that up at times. Whereas in person, you hear go and you're both going, So that's another key factor. And obviously, I don't think anybody wants to have in-person tournaments. It's just kind of the world situation we have to go with now. But yeah, there's a lot of variables into that. But speaking of online versus in-person tournaments, we were also talking previously about Keng Ian. We haven't seen Keng Ian compete in an in-person tournament for head-to-head individually. And it was also kind of going to tie into my question. What is it going to take? Initially, I phrased this question as, can anybody stop Keng Ian? But I feel like we all know the answer to that. No. Not right now, at least. But let's say somebody could stop Chenking Ian, or maybe there's somebody that is. Like maybe Ian has his off day, whatever it's going to take. What is it going to take for Ian to be toppled? Is it a stacker that's just faster than him? Is it going to be a performance thing? Is it in-person versus online? Like, Ethan, I guess we'll start with you on this one, but like, what is it going to take for somebody to beat Chenking Ian right now?
So, it's tough to say because I think with Ian, the thing that really makes him so great in my mind is that he just has so much poise. Um, of course, I've talked about a lot of other stackers who I think who have that it factor, that poise, and I think that that's really the thing that sets apart. Um, it sets apart the really good stackers from the great stackers. I really feel like I see that with Tyler Fano, and I think he's really given us like a formula on how to beat Chenking, and you just have to be tenacious. Tenacity is really what's so important about Chenking Ian. Um, I'm sure that Ian has obviously done you know thousands upon thousands of repetitions doing the cycle stack over and over again, and I just think if somebody is willing to put in that work and is willing to continue improving their consistency and just their relentless speed, um, then I think that eventually somebody can reach Ian's level. As far as when that will happen, I don't know, but I really do think if there's anybody who has a chance to do it, it's someone like Tyler Fano, somebody who is just relentless in their pursuit of greatness.
Yeah. I think that Ian is really trying to not only build his own dynasty, because I think he's already kind of done that in a sense. I think these last couple of years, he has arguably been the best stacker in the world. But I also think it's him trying to cement himself as the best stacker of all time. And that's another question that we're eventually going to have to start talking about is Chenking Ian the greatest stacker of all time? And if not, what else does he have to accomplish to get there? Like, what other dynasties does he have to set? What other boundaries does he have to break in order to do that? But another thing I see as well with Chenking Ian is that Chenking Ian is so far ahead of other stackers right now that he is able to stack comfortably and still beat people. I don't know how many stackers are going to be able to stack comfortably and beat Chenking Ian. I don't think any stackers are right now. So people are already having to push themselves out of their comfort zones, have to be uncomfortable, and obviously that makes them inconsistent. Like, if you put me up against Chenking Ian, I literally have to force myself to go full speed, which means that I'm likely going to fuck something up. Whereas Ian just has to go within the realm of his own comfort, which he's so good at. So I think it's going to be a matter of somebody else who is comfortable beating Chenking Ian. And I'm not sure anybody on the face of this earth is currently there right now. And I think the only person that can truly challenge Ian in that area, in person or online, doesn't matter, I think is William Morrell. And I think once we get cycle head-to-heads going on in person, online, I don't care, against those two, we're in for a show, because I feel like that's going to be the true test for Ian and for Morrell. You want to call yourself the best in the world? That's where it'll happen. What do you think, Evan? What do you think is going, if there's ever going to be an end to the Chenking Ian dynasty, what's it going to be?
I'm gonna say William Morrell also has probably the best chance to beat Chenking Ian. I think when he finds his zone, he is in the zone, and he will not merge out. He will stay on the highway and he won't exit. And I think that with that mentality, and Orel and Chenking Ian having very similar speeds, I think that if Orel can get enough wiggle room, and if Chenking Ian has some of those unfortunate slip-ups or fumbles or mess-ups, I think that Orel will definitely have a chance at putting a halt to that dynasty.
Yeah. And of course, I'm sure Orel's passionate in the same way. I'm sure he has more personal things to deal with because he's a little bit older. I think he's 22, 23, something like that. And he has to deal with college and family life and personal things just like the most of us do. Whereas Ian probably doesn't have to deal with as much of that. When he's not stacking, he's probably playing Valorant in his free time. So he gets have a little bit more fun with it. And because he's so far ahead, that's the nice thing, is that he has so much breathing room. He gets to wait for people to challenge him. And we have to figure out who's going to even be who's going to be there to do that. Who's truly going to be able to challenge Keng Ian. I think that Tyler Hollis put up an amazing performance in the grand finals. It was just a couple of those rounds where just barely slipped in favor of Ian. Whereas if those rounds go in Tyler's favor, where it was like, 5.24 versus 5.21 or something like that, if those go the other way, who knows? Maybe Tyler could have made that series more competitive, but it just didn't happen. It's coulda, woulda, shoulda. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we are with Keng Ian. It's like, in order for somebody to beat Keng Ian right now, you have to be able to be tenacious. You have to be able to be comfortable in what would normally be an uncomfortable situation, what would be a nerve-wracking situation. And overall, you just have to be able to perform when he doesn't, which is kind of a problem because he always seems to be able to perform. How many times are you going to catch Keng Ian slip up? And I don't think it's going to happen, especially at least in the head-to-head competition. And that's kind of where I wanted to talk about the next part of this podcast, this show, is formatting for tournaments. I think is another thing that apparently I sounded this incorrectly, but is another big talking point with stacking tournaments and how they're formatted. Because with PYRA tournaments, it is exclusively, at least majorly, head-to-head competition. I don't really care about the 2 warm-ups and 3 attempts. You want to go do that? Go to a Speed Stacks WSSA tournament. Go to the KSSA. I don't care. Go somewhere else to do that. Because I don't feel like that's a true testament to how good a stacker is. I really don't. I feel like William Morrell would have still been just as dominant in his own era of 4 to 5 years where he owned the scene, if it were all head-to-head competition, in the same way that he was when it was the 2 warm-ups and 3 attempts. And specifically with William Morrell, that's the reason why he's had his own era, is that he measures his competition so goddamn well. He knows who he has to go up against, or he knows what times he has to beat, and he doesn't. Because he's fast enough to understand that he can do it, consistent enough to actually make it happen, and is, I guess, just intelligent enough to wave the playing field, weigh it out, and understand what he's likely going to have to do before he even does it. However, here's the thing as well. This is from my own personal opinion. I think that the 2 warm-ups, 3 attempts style of stacking and the head-to-head competition both have their place. I'm not dissing anybody or any, competition organizers for doing one or the other. I think they both have their place. I think that they both have their space in the sport. However, I feel like most stackers agree with this, and I've done polls on this where most stackers literally agree with me on this. If you want the true highest form of cup stacking and the highest level of stacking integrity, head-to-head competition seems to be the way that most people want to go. I mean, I'm sure you guys will be able to have your own opinions, Evan, because you are our guest. We'll start with you. Where do you lean more towards when it comes to competition?
I agree 100%. Head-to-head is probably the best format for cup stacking, mainly because head-to-head is the greatest format for defining a good stacker. I think head-to-head really tests your ability to maintain that consistency, in which head-to-head revolves more around consistency and how consistent you are. And I think with WSSA tournaments, they're more based on time, which, if it's that format, it's up for grabs for anyone. Someone can have a good day, someone can have a bad day. And I have been able to, place top 3 in those kind of formats, but they don't feel as good as, like, for example, winning a PYRA tournament, because I know that I won the tournament because I was the most consistent stacker there. And head-to-head should, honestly, from my opinion, be in every single tournament, no matter what organization, no matter what it is. It should all be head-to-head. And
I guess that's the other feeling of it, too. It's like, when you would... I won tournaments that have been specifically 2 warm-ups, 3 attempts based. And when you win those tournaments, you don't feel like you won the tournament because you were the best stacker there. You won the tournament because everybody else didn't get fast times as fast as you did. And I guess with head-to-head competition, it's like if you win a head-to-head competition-based tournament, you fucking earned it. You were better than everybody else. You went up against the best stackers and you won. And I think that's where it kind of separates it. And you know what's also really exciting for me, for just stacking in general, one of my favorite moments of stacking was International Challenge, was JRO Challenge, was like having a team and you go head-to-head against another team. You know, there is no ands, ifs, ors, or buts. You go up to the table, you stack. And that's also a team game too. So it's like you can have 3 of the 4 best stackers in the world. If that 4 stacker just isn't as hot as the other 3, you could still lose pretty easily. And that's another realm of stacking I'm excited to get into. But I think that's where head-to-head really, it needs to be more of a setting stone for the sport. Now, I will say, I do think a time trials, prelims, finals type of format that most stackers are akin to, I feel like that still has its spot. I just don't think it should be as important in tournaments as head-to-head competition is. I feel like if they're going to be in tournaments, it should be the setting stone. Who are we going to put you up against based on your times? You know, that I think that's where we should be making the judgment for the prelims, finals, time trials type of format. But Ethan, I already know you got something bubbling in that big old noggin of yours. Let us hear. What's your opinion on all of this?
You're very generous, Kian. No, but I completely agree. I do believe that the time format has so much more potential. Oh, I'm really sorry. I believe the head-to-head format has significantly more potential than the time format of stacking, based on, my personal experience with the format at First Strike. I think the issue with the time format, and I do agree with Kian that it does have its place in sports stacking. I believe that, you know, with the paratagem that was used at First Strike, which was, the time trials format would be used to determine your how should I say this?
Division group.
Yeah, your division group, how it would determine what division you would be placed in. I think that was fine. The issue with using the time format to determine final results is that, and this is kind of expanding on what Kian was talking about, it only measures how good you are in a vacuum, and certain stackers might have an off day. Um, they may excel in 1 or 2 events and then completely bomb the other. Um, with the head-to-head format, I think I tend to agree with Kian that it's just much more earned. Um, I do think, I think obviously the issue of, results being in a vacuum does still somewhat apply to the head-to-head format, especially going up against someone like Keng, who is just so much better than everyone else, but to a significantly lesser extent. Um, and I just feel as though, um, I think that the head-to-head format has really set the standard for the future of competitive stacking.
And I just realized I was muted. God damn it. I was going on a tangent there too. Okay. What I was saying was, I think we all agree to an extent. And I think there's also just more, I just want to expand more to these types of ideas going forward. I want to see what else we're capable of doing as a sport. One of the things that was really exciting for me to see, whilst it was technically head-to-head, I'm not sure how much you can waver one way or the other, was match point. Watching that at PYRA Cup All-Stars. Evan, you competed in it, so I'm sure you'll have your own 10 cents for how it was actually competing in it. But honestly, that was some of the most fun stacking just to watch in general. That was a lot of fun to watch. And thank you everybody in chat for letting me know that I was indeed muted. We're good now. But yeah, I guess from a watching standpoint, that was a lot of fun to watch. I think just how much pressure was on in the moment. It's like, you get one good shot at this, don't screw it up, to put all the weight on the line. I think that's another format that needs to be looked into a little bit more, because I think that whilst maybe it's not going to be the status quo or anything like that going forward, I think that that might also be another category that has its place. Sorry, I was like grabbing something that was falling off my chair. But yeah, another category that you may have seen me edit because I'm a professional at podcasting, as you can all clearly tell. What's PYRA been up to since Double Down? So for starters, PYRA did not just go completely AWOL. Like, we didn't just disappear entirely. In fact, we're working on a lot of things right now in the background. One of them is going to be some more jerseys. Get set up. Excited for those. Yes, sir. Not these jerseys. You have to win a tournament for these ones. Sorry, Ethan. But yeah, leave the room. No. So what else we were also looking at working on in general was just the next tournament that we want to do. And I've actually straight up gotten offers from a couple people in and outside the stacking world on, you know, what we want to do for tournaments, especially in-person tournaments. My next tournament, saying this right now, spoiler alert, I plan for it to be an in-person tournament. Barring something happening, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, barring something insane happening, I want the next tournament to be in person. And I also, just to say, I also want it to be the best tournament to ever been hosted. Straight up. I was talking about the travel funds earlier, and I'm actually willing to go down into detail on what that's more like. I just have to pull up a document to actually do so. Give me just a second. Yeah, gonna be here a second. Well, I was looking at a couple of different ways to actually set up the travel fund, because obviously I want stackers to not have to pay so much just to come to a tournament. Especially because I want them to compete. I want the best stackers in the world to be there. So we're setting up a travel fund for that. Obviously, we have to get a venue. We have to get equipment. We already have some equipment. We're going to need a lot more for the tournament I was envisioning. But I want this to be a tournament that is not even on like the same caliber of like a juniors or worlds. I want it to be bigger than that. I want it to be way bigger than that, at least from the production standpoint. Now, as some of you may have realized, that's not going to be cheap. So, and I'm even willing to say, like, if I were to go bare bones for everything I would want and need for an in-person tournament to host a broadcast and to host stackers in the tournament for like the lowest bar I'll be willing to go for a tournament, you're already looking at like $10,000 or $15,000 just right there. Yeah, that's the lowest, by the way. And if you want to, you know, anything more than that, you just have to keep adding money to it. And again, when I talked about this in a video, that those two things have been my biggest setback: money and people. Now, one thing obviously helps out a little bit more with the other. The more money I can get on the side, the more people will probably be willing to budge. So we're also setting up some form of like a Kickstarter, GoFundMe to help with fundraising for the tournament once we have things more ironed out and announced. However, of course, I've been saving money like crazy recently from my own job, and it's something I definitely have a strict budget set up for, with just like the realistic nature of what I'll be able to do with it. Because obviously I of course want to run an in-person tournament, but not only do I want to run an in-person tournament, I want the best stackers in the world to be there, and I will pay good money to have the best stackers in the world be there. Like if you guys think I'm kidding, our travel funds right now, for the top 8 stackers, if we were to fund the top 8 stackers for at least like a couple $100 each, you're already looking at $3,000 for our top 8. Just to get to the tournament. That's not the prize pool, by the way. That has nothing to do with the prize pool. That is just to make sure stackers can go to the tournament. Because you understand, like, if I'm trying to get Keng in to come all the way to the US for a tournament, that's probably a couple grand in and of itself. And of course, because he's the #1 ranked stacker in the world, and the benefits, by the way, for being the #1 ranked stacker in the world, is for our next in-person tournament, it will be an all expenses paid trip. You are coming to and from. Evan's crying there. RIP, rest in pepperonis. I'll make sure you get some good perks though as well. But yeah, like with Ian, the next tournament he's available to come to, hopefully it'll be our next in-person tournament. I want him to be able to get all expenses paid trip down here so that he doesn't have to be completely like lost in the thought of trying to buy things without money. And on top of that, like, stackers should be getting paid to compete. You are professional athletes. Like, this should be the bare minimum. I know it sounds super awesome, but you should not have to pay out of your own pockets just to compete in tournaments. Doesn't make any sense. But again, like I said, obviously all this is going to cost a lot of money. And again, if you want to go on the high end, the low end is like 10 to 15 grand. The high end, you're probably looking at about $30,000. It's going to be, it's going to be pushing it. But we're going to be setting up some things for it in the coming months. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But if you want to help support financially in any way, shape, or form, we do have a donation link on our website, cupstackingpyra.com. So if you're ever feeling generous or you have a spare buck or two, anything helps. We truly appreciate it. But I promise you, Pyra's not going AWOL. We do have plans for future tournaments. It's just been a lot of trying to get everything together, trying to get the stackers together, trying to get the equipment together. And speaking of equipment, that's actually another topic I wanted to talk about. Because something that I feel like we need to talk more on about, and something also just because I feel like ranting. Gen 5. Let's talk about Gen 5 a little bit. Gen 5. Oh boy. This is going to be probably the conversation that if I were ever to get banned from the WSA, this is going to do it. I don't care anymore. Let's just talk about Gen 5. There's a lot to talk about, and I've already talked on some of it, obviously, over a couple of my previous videos. But I feel like Gen 5 is arguably one of the most confusing things ever to happen in the sport, but it also makes perfect sense in a way I'll get to in a second. But I feel like Gen 5 was just done wrong. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to start out by saying that. I feel like Gen 5 was just done completely wrong. For starters, this is a huge company that's making a decision not only to implement a new timer. If they were just implementing a new timer, hey, who cares, whatever. But a timer that completely changes the way you're allowed to stack. Oh, and because it's going to make your time slower, we're just going to throw away all of the other previous times in a database that nobody's ever going to look at anymore, unless those times just straight up never get beaten. Which is, I mean, come on, they're like already on the precipice of beating for some of them. So it's just like, it was just done so confusingly when they announced it. Because, like, one, you didn't tell any of the stackers that you are going to, like, get rid of all of our times until you just straight up did, which was like a huge slap in the face for all of the stackers that have been competing in your tournaments for the past couple of years. And two, it just kind of feels like it feels like so out of place. Because they also mentioned, this is the part that I don't get at all, is that they mentioned that the two-pad mode was actually meant for cubing. Huh? You'd think it would be the other way around, because, you know, most cubers actually put their hands like this on the timers, but I guess not. So that was that. And then it actually got implemented. You started seeing them in the tournaments, yada, yada, yada. I saw it on Hot Atlanta. And speaking of Hot Atlanta, I went to the tournament and I was watching stackers use the Gen 5 timers in 4-pad mode, as it's called. And I was like, wait, so why are you guys not stopping with your thumbs? I was like, oh, you don't have to. You can just stop it with your full palm if you just push it over. I'm like, well, then what the fuck is the point? Well, one, what the fuck is the point? And two, you don't realize how they're going to use that against you. And this is also just like, I guess the section is also used as a fair warning for stackers going forward. Understand that the WSA allowing you to stop the timers with, like, not your thumbs, enjoy that while it lasts, because I'm going to give it a couple good years until stackers start beating the Gen 4 and previous times. And the WSA sees that and sees that they're once again at a plateau with the times. And then they enforce that rule. And or reset things again. Because, again, come back to me in a couple of years when this happens. Don't say I didn't warn you. Because this is what they do. All the time. And it's infuriating to see because, like, I feel like at times I'm, like, screaming it out to people. It's like, You know, it's the end of days, and people are like, bro, what are you on about? It's like, I'm trying to tell you. It's like, enjoy it while it lasts, because I would bet good money on it that in the future, I'm not sure when in the future, it could be a couple days from now, it could be a couple years from now, it could be a couple centuries from now, I don't know. But at some point in the future, the WSA are going to see that and just say, oh, stackers have been using the timers wrong, and realize that they weren't enforcing their own rules correctly, even though they knew that they weren't. They're gonna see it now and fix the issue. So yeah, I had to rant about that, because I just know it's gonna happen at some point where stackers that don't stop with their thumbs are gonna get completely screwed over. Which is like why it's actually also impressive to see the stackers that are using it properly, like Arel, believe it or not, I think is using the timer somewhat properly. I think those are the stackers gonna make it out the best. But like Arel, I think Arel knows this as well. He's pretty smart when it comes to it. But like trying to switch to the timer, because I used the Gen 5 timer, and man, I am so glad I don't have a Gen 5 timer, because it's just uncomfortable to try and stop that timer without stopping it with your palms. Unless, again, you are literally William Arel, and that's already accustomed to you.
Yeah, I remember. I let you try it when I came over for First Strike, and
I couldn't stop the timer.
You tried it for the first time, and you said never again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a rough experience. And oh, somebody put it in chat. Gen 5's goal was to make less scratches, yet they made more rules that cause more scratches. Yeah, basically. And like, I think the main thing that they were trying to solve was stopping people from like stopping with their wrists. However, now that you're allowing them to stop with their palms, there's a good chance that when they overextend their palms, they're going to stop with their wrists, thus completely defeating the purpose of the rule. I don't know. I feel like I've got like a tinfoil hat on over here. But Ethan, I know you've talked about this in previously. I'm gonna land the floor to you. What is your quote unquote like? Just ramble it out. What's your opinion on Gen 5?
Sorry, everybody. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you pulled it.
I forgot that I had to press H. No. The only positive thing I am going to say about Gen 5, and this is really a testament to the amazing community we have, is that they have been willing to adjust to Gen 5 and make the best out of a pretty bad situation. I appreciate that. All that being said, the thing that has always frustrated me, and I've rambled on about this on Facebook, and people are like, "Yeah, Ethan, we get it. You've talked about it like 50 times now," is that what so many people seem to think is right in sports stacking, what should be allowed, what should not be allowed, is and always has been based on the WSSA's interpretation of sports stacking and their interpretation of the sports stacking rulebook. So something like, not being able to stop with your wrist, or stopping with your wrist being unprofessional, um, it might seem like the right decision to implement Gen 5 for them, but to us, like, obviously blatant wrist stopping, and blatant stopping with literally your forearm, has always been a point of contention as far as online times. But stopping with the wrist, um, enforcing that, it just seems very arbitrary, and it's something that the community has never really minded, um, or paid much mind to. I think that there are so many other solutions that could have been implemented instead of the Gen 5 timer. Um, and none of them would have been easier, or more efficient than just having more cameras. And I understand that some people object to that on the basis of cameras being expensive, but that also raises the question as to why third-party equipment, like third-party cameras, are such a bad thing. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but WCA tournaments use third-party footage partially to review their times, correct?
I
And
think so, yeah.
yeah, and it makes no sense, especially when the quality of cameras that other stackers use or parents use are of the same quality, if not better quality, than the cameras that the WSSA that the WSSA uses. So I've never understood that. Um, and I agree with Alexander Markoulis completely when he said that, the many rules that were implemented in the past um, were implemented to enhance sports stacking, and this rule has done just the opposite. It's only slowed sports stacking down. And William Morrell had said a while ago, I can't remember exactly what video. I think it was his 4.577 that was a point of contention because of the mat he used. That anything that could be used to possibly, enhance the sport or make it faster should be welcomed by the community. And I would hope that that would include the WSSA, but apparently not.
Yeah, and I agree with you on most of that, and as well, if we're gonna get into the why as to with the Gen 5 as to, well, with all of these cons, it seems like this timer shouldn't be implemented. So why did they do it? Now, a lot of people are saying it's to reduce scratches. However, I'm going to go into a video on this in the future. There was a much more important reason as to why this timer needed to be implemented. Now, I am going to leave that as a surprise for all of you at home to go ahead and think about and also do your own research about, because again, I do plan on making a full video about Gen 5 and another timer that I'll be talking about later. But for the time being, let's talk about something a little bit more fun-spirited. Next stacker, we think is going to be getting a 4. Now, I think we're at 54s officially, right? It's 50 now? I wasn't sure if it was more or
That's
not.
correct.
Okay, it's 50. Because I know Finley. Congratulations to Finley. Finley got number 50. Let's go to him. And for a period of time, I was really trying. Like, I was really pushing myself, but it just never happened. And I got lazy, and I just didn't care. So now that it's 50, now I definitely don't care. So I'm going to remove myself from even the conversation of the next stacker to get a 4, because it definitely will not be me. What do you guys think? Evan, because you already have a 4, who do you think is the next?
Kian, don't put yourself out of it. There are 2 stackers that I'm looking at specifically that I think could get the next 4. One of them is being you. I think recently you've been on a roll with just getting records. You got close at one point, and I think that sure, you may have hit kind of this dead stop, and it's just kind of sitting here. I still think that you'll have a chance at some point to get a 4, because I know you have the potential to. You have what it takes. You have the speed. You have the consistency. But the other person I've been looking at, and he has looked very promising, I think, is Billy. His pace right now in terms of records have been actually pretty impressive for me. And with his recent first 5.0, I think that he's not going to be stopping there. I think he's going to be getting more records probably within the next month or so. But if I had to pick between both of you, I think just in terms of pacing, I think probably Billy.
Yeah, no, I agree. The only thing is, like, once I usually hit that like plateau of like not getting records, because here's the thing: if I spent a couple of days like actually practicing or something, or like a couple of hours each day practicing, yeah, I'd probably have it. I just don't do that because I got other things to do right now, with PYRA, with my job, with personal life, girlfriend, all that stuff. Ethan, what about you? Who do you think is next?
It's me.
Oh, okay. Because you're close, bro. You're literally 0.005 away from it.
I'm only kidding. Well, the thing is, Kian, the fastest time I've stacked since then has been a 5.164. So I don't even imagine I could probably. I don't imagine I could come close anytime soon. One stacker I do like, I do like Billy as well. Just feeding off what Evan was talking about. Billy has so much promise to stack a 4 still. Javier obviously he's been on the precipice for a while. I don't know, how much he practices, but I would still definitely say he would have a shot. And he's gotten close recently. Who is that? I don't know his name, but there's that one left-handed stacker, I believe, from the United Kingdom, that's gotten very close recently. He stacked like a 515.
I don't know.
No,
The only
I'm
person
trying.
that comes to mind with that was.
Hold on.
I think Evan knows who I'm referring to.
Putting it in his brain.
Yeah, I lost it.
Oh, okay.
Let me try to look this up because he posts he posts to YouTube pretty often. You guys could just come back to me, but yeah, it would probably be Billy.
People are saying Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie. I can't pronounce his last name. It's like Polderi or something. Polderi.
Yeah,
Polidri?
Yeah, probably Polidri.
but that is exactly who it is. It is Charlie. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we got some topics there. Now, Ethan, you had a fun game. We're gonna probably start wrapping things up a little bit, but you had a fun game that you wanted to show us. It was called Guess the Stacker. So you want to get into that a little bit?
Sorry. On Facebook, you guys probably remember when I was making a bunch of those posts where like you would have to guess the stacker by overall. So that's what we're gonna do today. They have a 1 minute time limit, and whoever guesses it wins. And what should they win? I'll just say whichever one of you wins, you get dibs on the bed when you come over. Okay. So,
Oh, great.
let me just recheck it overall.
So you're just gonna are you gonna make it easier as we go through?
Yeah, and you guys can ask for hints if you want. The one thing I will not give away is the state they're from, because I feel like there's only so many stackers that
Yeah, that's a good point.
you would know. This first one, however, is a good friend of mine. His overall is 8.492. Chat, please do not spoil it for them. All right, and your 1 minute timer begins now.
You said it's a friend of yours, right?
Yes.
And you didn't make it like either of us, right?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Say the overall again.
It is 8.492.
Nate?
Nope.
Billy?
Nope. I will give you a hint. He has held multiple world records in multiple different events. Excuse me.
Is this official or unofficial?
This is his unofficial overall.
And is he still stacking today?
Not really.
Josh Hansel?
Nope.
That's too slow for him.
5 seconds.
Wally Polly?
Nope. That was a good guess though.
Josh Kleindienst.
Nope.
All right. Who was it?
Time is up. It is multiple world record holder Chandler Miller.
God damn it. Oh. Yeah, I literally would never have get. Did anybody in chat get it? Nope, not even close.
Nope.
All right, Evan, do you wanna think of a stacker, go find their overall? And then I'll be last. And again, don't make it any of us.
Okay, I just got to remember their overall.
Yeah, that might help.
Trust me, I'll be quick.
Okay.
Come on, Evan. No, just kidding.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, we never prepare for these things. So welcome to the experience, everybody. Whilst we're waiting, everybody in chat, if you have any questions for Evan, Cloud, myself, Ethan, or you just want to talk about anything, specifically questions, put them in chat now. Now is a good time because we're going to be answering questions, and then we're going to end the first episode. So now is the good time. That was a good time. Ask those questions, and we'll be queuing them up for you. And we'll also mention you in the chat.
All right, I got mine.
All right.
All right, so this person is a very close friend of mine too. Sorry. So his overall is 8016.
Oh shit.
And your 1 minute timer starts now.
Shit.
8.016. That's fast. Is it Tyler Hollis?
No.
No, I think Tyler has a 7 overall.
Is it Trey?
Ethan got it.
Damn it! Oh my god, I should have thought of that. He's a very good friend of mine. I should have automatically assumed Trey.
I didn't know if he had a 7 overall. That's why I was like.
Honestly, I wanted to do someone else, but I just think I don't know. I wanted to make it easy on you guys.
I gotcha. All right, it's my turn, which means I have to go find a stacker. BRB.
I'm not gonna look at the screen.
Oh yeah, you guys can look at these two can look at my screen. So no peeking.
Oh,
All right.
dang it.
Actually, I can just put this over here. What am I doing?
Oh man.
All right, give me just 1 second again. Whilst we're waiting,
Okay,
gamers, stackers, everybody in chat.
Your 1 second is up.
Your 1 minute is up. You lose.
Watch me get this right on the spot.
If you do, I'm gonna be actually infuriated.
Joshua Kleinians.
That's just gonna be my answer
So this
to
stacker,
everything.
Josh Kleinings. Ah, damn it.
No, just takes a breath. Josh Kleinians. What?
Josh Kleins.
Okay, I have to actually find his overall as well. So give me just 1 second. All right, so my stacker is currently one of the stackers in the world. Okay, so I either have to figure out what his... I have to figure out what his times are in order to actually get his overall. Again, professional podcast here. All right. So this stacker is fast.
Very specific.
Really helping
Bruh,
you guys
I
out
know
here.
it. I recognize that video.
What?
People in the comments are like, I recognize that video.
Oh yeah, they can hear it. Don't spoil it, chat. Do you spoil it?
I don't like this. Well, no, they haven't. But I don't like the sound of this because like everyone knows who it is, and then I'm gonna be like the one person that doesn't. And I'm gonna flip the chair and then leave the room.
Okay, I got it. All right. So this stacker, you guys ready? This stacker has an overall of 7.824. You have 1 minute. Begin.
Peter.
No.
Nate.
No.
7.
I'm assuming it's unofficial, right?
Unofficial. Correct.
How recently did they stack their most recent record?
A while ago.
Dalton Nichols.
Close, but no. Would you guys like a hint?
Please.
He competed at PCS Double Down.
Tyler Fano.
Not Tyler Fano.
Tyler Hollis.
Not Tyler Hollis.
Will Allen.
Yes, you got it. All right, so I think that means everybody except me wins. Congratulations, guys.
Evan gets dibs on the bed.
Yay.
I get the floor.
No, you get the couch. I get the floor.
I get the concrete outside.
All right, so that is going to conclude. Or you guys want to do one more round?
Let's do one more. That was fun.
Okay. Ethan, one more round.
Oh baby.
Oh, baby.
Actually figure out who it is this time. That would help.
Apparently, Will's overall is 771 too.
I literally went over his last 3 videos, so I was probably wrong. I apologize.
I guess gotta look.
Would it have helped either of you anyways if I had given you the correct overall?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Well, you won anyway, so be quiet.
Don't tell me what to do.
Let me think of the stackers overall.
Ask Trey, he'll tell you.
Thanks, Trey.
I love Trey.
This is so true. The amount of times that I go to his house, dude, he's a mastermind at a lot of things.
Uh-huh. It's like, oh yeah, Kian, you're actually 5'11", and your last tournament I saw you was this one back 16 years ago. Like,
Tape measure, I go.
So this stacker is
Kian Lynch.
no. The stacker
Damn
is
it.
It's Kian Lynch. No, but this stacker is horrendous, terrible. His
Okay.
overall is 8.389. Go.
8.389. Billy.
Nope.
Imagine.
389.
Which means it's like probably 5.1 cycle. Am I right on that?
Close.
Close. 5.0.
Yes.
5.0 cycle. Javier.
Nope.
Shit.
Repeat the overall.
8.389.
Is it you?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
We literally said don't do any of us. Yeah, you know what? Who cares? All right.
Hey, at least Kian won.
No copyright law in the universe is gonna stop me.
No, I think we all won. I think we all tied because we each got one round win.
Match point.
Match point. Well, then if somebody else decides. Well, yeah, like the tiebreaker. Okay. Ethan, do you have another one by chance?
Yeah, I can get another one.
All right.
For the bed.
All right. For the bed when we go visit Ethan later in this year.
For the bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me think of his cycle right.
I should have known it was you when you said that this stacker was horrendous.
Well, I was sitting there thinking it was like a super close friend. I heard the overall, so I was actually thinking when he said super horrendous, I thought he was gonna say Noah. We're all like really good friends with Noah, and Noah is awful. No, he's not. He's pretty good.
A legendary stacker in the making, y'all.
Oh yeah, literally best stacker in the world. Are you ready?
Almost.
Adding the overall.
Yes, we are ready now. This stacker's overall is close to mine. His overall is 8.351.
Okay.
Oh wait, hold on. Timer. No, not 16 hours, 1 minute. All right, go.
And it's not me, right?
No.
Okay. Is the stacker from the US?
Yes.
Yes.
8351.
Yes.
Billy.
Nope.
He's not from the US.
No, he is. Yeah. Billy's
Oh
not
yeah,
from-
Billy's not. I'm stupid.
Cameron Fetter?
No. I'll give you guys a hint. He used to live in the same state as me.
Jiwei?
Yes.
Enjoy the top of the car, Evan.
Evan, we have a spare bedroom. We have a spare bedroom. buddy.
Yay.
Okay. So that was Guess the Stacker. I am now officially the best stacker in the world. Chen, Keng, and who. So now, we're going to wrap some things up. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, all the stackers in the chat, whilst we wrap things up, I want you guys to ask any final questions for myself, for Evan, for Ethan, anything about stacking, anything about PYRA, whatever you guys want to ask. This is the time where you get to ask questions.
Ask him now.
What he said, but just not as threateningly, please.
Too bad.
This thing, Q&A. Let's go, Q&A time. I saw one question previously. I'm gonna go find it.
I think it
Oh.
was the juniors podium predictions.
When are you going to reveal the next guest on the podcast? Good question. Well, I'm excited to announce that the next guest on the podcast is none other than Dwayne The Rock Johnson. No, I'm kidding. I don't know who it is.
It's about drive. It's about power.
It
Stay
is
hungry, we devour.
It is indeed about all that stuff. Junior OLY. What does that mean?
I think she did ask earlier what like our predictions for juniors were. I might be wrong about
Yeah,
that.
podium for juniors, I think. Yeah, juniors predictions.
Top 3?
Assuming so, yeah.
Okay. Who's competing? I need to like who all is. That was the other problem.
No, okay, so notable stackers are going to be Aurel, myself, Will Allen, Tyler Fano, Seamus,
Hollis.
Hollis will be there. Yes.
Okay.
Peter.
I have my top 3.
Finley will be there. Yes.
My top 3, not in any order. William Morrell, Andrew Dale, Tyler Hollis.
Oh, I forgot he's going.
Honorable mentions for 4th and 5th, you, Evan, and probably I have a feeling will probably sneak his way in there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to at least get top 5, as I usually do sometimes. Well, sometimes. But I'd say that my podium is probably going to be like this is going to be in order from 1st to 5th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have Aurel taking that top spot because he is extremely dominant in Junior Olympics. He has almost won every Junior Olympics he has gone to, and I think has he won every single juniors he's gone to?
Probably up to like 2014.
He has won every junior since 2014 with.
That's right. Chandler won 2013.
Yeah, with the exception of juniors 2017. Wait, no, he didn't win 2017 or 2018.
No, Andrew Dale won 2017, but Aurel didn't go.
Yeah, and then Tyler Hollis won.
No, Aurel went to 2017. I think it was 2018. He didn't win.
Oh wait, yeah, that's right. He did go to 2017. Yeah. You're right.
And then Tyler won juniors 2018.
Yes, but that was with the absence of Aurel. So obviously, I think Aurel's going to win. I'm going to have Tyler Hollis taking 2nd. I think it's going to be just like last year. It's going to be a really close battle between 2nd and 1st. Aurel will have the last little bit of it and come out on top. 3rd place, I'm kind of struggling right now to choose, but I'm going to go with Tyler Fano. I think he's going to have a pretty dominant performance. Me personally, he will probably set a new national record for cycle, as I'm pretty confident with that statement. And then honorable mentions, 4th and 5th. I'll say that I get 5th and Will Allen will get 4th. It'll be a pretty competitive battle for top 5 at least.
Okay. Ethan?
There tends to be a lot of parity at these competitions. So I think some of my picks might seem a little bit more unorthodox. For my winner, I mean, I still got to go with William Morrell. I just feel like this is his tournament. Like he always, I know he's
the guy to beat.
Yeah, I know it's an appeal to tradition, but like he almost always dominates juniors. 2nd overall always is, well, not always, but a lot of the times it tends to be like somebody nobody expects. I'm gonna have to go with Dalton. I think this will finally be the tournament. He finally.
I will cry if it's him.
I will be so happy. If I think this might be the tournament where he podiums at a marquee tournament. 3rd place, I got to go with my boy Nate Hara, and then 4th and 5th, I'm gonna say it's not gonna say the position like specifically, but I'm just gonna say it's Evan and Tyler. Just you guys could switch. Tyler Hollis.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this one's gonna be extremely competitive for sure. I'm not gonna assume everything's gonna be easy. It's just I'm gonna go to this tournament and just be like, hey, everything's up in the table. Just gonna hope for the best.
All right, so we got a couple more questions. Once this huge tournament you plan happens, what state do you guess it would be in, or is that still up in the air? So I want it to be either Delaware, Philly, or New York. Those are the 3 states I'm aiming at right now. If I can't do it in the East Coast, I 100% want to do it in the West Coast. If I were picking a place I wanted to go, we would be straight in either Oceanside or Los Angeles, California. If that's my want, if I can realistically make that happen with people traveling, paying to people travel, it would 100% be in Los Angeles. But because I want to be a little bit more realistic, and because most of the stackers on the East Coast will probably focus on one of those 3 states, I'm not positive about anything just yet until I got a venue I got a contract for. Then, we'll know a little bit more there. If you were to add a hypothetical 4th event, excluding 333, 360 cycle, what would it be and why? 9 cycle, without question. Now, some people love 9 cycle, some people fucking despise it, and I understand both sides of that. But if we need to have a fourth event for any reason, I would probably aim at 9 cycle because it's just the closest thing to the current 3 events. I'm going to focus on cycle majorly anyways, just because that's what everybody kind of focuses on. Like, that's the event. Like, if you're going to win something, you want to win cycle, you know? So that would be my question.
Hot take, rapid fire.
Rapid fire? Ooh. Oh my god, that would be... Could you imagine that head-to-head? Be literal insanity.
Me and Andrew Dale, that'd be
Yeah.
sick.
I think I saw somebody else ask, is there any room for competition for smaller size cups, minis, medium size cups? Good question, because that's something I wanted to add more into at some point. Yes, the mediums. Because I know that there are stackers who are faster with smaller cups than they are with larger cups. I think Andrew Dale is, like, he has a faster overall with the shorties, I think they're called, than he has with not only his current overall, but I think it's, like, actually faster than with regular size cups overall, isn't it now?
He has a faster overall with shorties than anybody in the world, like, straight up.
Yeah. And he's, like, absolutely insane with those. So it's also, like, trying to balance that and, like, weighing out its own playing field, because shorties, you can be so much faster, but it's so much harder to be consistent. So I don't know how that would all work. Same thing with minis. I think minis would be next to impossible to have its own, like, area of competition in, and keep competitive integrity.
I forgot to answer the the question about the 4th event. I would probably say blindfolded cycle, personally. I think.
Oh, yeah, that's solid. 122, 156, 438. That's just fucking insane. Well, if for anybody that says, you know, we can't get a 4.3 or we can't get a 4 point whatever in cycle, yeah, that should, there you go. You know, just keep answering your question. How about doubles competition? Doubles is awesome. Yeah, doubles competition or a competition based on doubles or just like having that as an extra event. That would be questionable only because it would be so hard to implement it and make it fair without there already being a team structure. Like, if I'm going to do a team structure, first and foremost, I want to get head-to-head, like, relays involved. I want people to be able to make their own teams in a way that's fair to them, that doesn't automatically create any super teams, because in theory, like, you have all the best stackers in the world. You shouldn't have to worry about super teams. Everybody should be competitive with each other. So figuring that out is going to be a bit of a process, and then also, like, figuring out making sure that teams are okay with having doubles, like, competitions. Like, it would be tricky to implement in that type of competition, but I'm sure there's always going to be room for it. It's just where that room is, and in this current point in time, I'm also trying to pinpoint what we want to do now. And something I'll talk about as well is, like, because I've had a lot of people question, it's like, are you ever going to make, like, are you ever going to expand the area of competition that PYRA has? Because right now, of course, PYRA is only focused on the best stackers in the world. That's where the main focus of it. And my answer to that is eventually. Eventually. Once we get things ironed out, of course I'll focus on that. But I also don't worry about it too much, because the other 99% of stackers, you have KSSA and WSSA and Cupstack and ISSF and all that stuff. Evan, you said something, you were muted.
Oh, I said I like this question that Seamus asked, but you can go ahead and finish.
Okay. Yeah. You have space to compete and to stack still. So you already have your place. And where I feel like the majority of people have been ignored for the longest period of time is that 1% of stackers who truly want to show off how they are the best and don't really get the opportunities to, which is what I'm trying to set up right now. I want to focus on the 1%. Once we're a little bit more established down the line, 99%, of course, we'll focus on that. Now, you said Seamus had a question or something. Stackers you want to compete at PYRA that haven't yet. I definitely don't want Seamus to compete. I hate Seamus. Kidding. Of course I want Seamus to compete. I think I've even told you about that in a previous stream. Definitely want Seamus to compete. Dalton, I'd kill to have Dalton compete, because I really think that's gonna... I want to see him compete, because I want to see where he truly is, like, in the top stackers in the world. He's already competed, but I want to see more of Tyler Hollis. I want to see Tyler compete a little bit more in our tournaments. I'm trying to think of who else. Nate Hara. 100% want to see Nate Hara compete more.
I like the consistency from Matthew Baker. I think that he could put on a show
Yeah, I think Matthew's definitely another dark horse candidate in and of itself. And then another second that's also competed, but I want to see more. Andrew Dale. Of course, I want to see Andrew compete more in more of her tournaments. Yeah, those are the names that come to mind. Any others?
I don't know what like the situation like. Would Max Park be willing to compete at like a PYRA competition?
I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think that would be
Mac Park is great.
That would be fun and awesome to watch, just to see where he stands with consistency. We all know that he is extremely dominant with speed. Like he has his records just went like that. And so I think now the bigger test for him now would be consistency, and I would love to see that.
What about somebody asked me, what about HJC? Of course I would love to see HJC. Of course, bro. I'm not sure if he even still stacks, but I would love that. Betsy as well. I just want to see more females in general compete, because I know there's a lot of fast females. I want to see them kind of come back into this area. Shout out to Quinn Twins. Ethan, you have your hand up for something?
Yes, I have another stacker. Who I would
Yes.
love to see
Who would you
compete.
love to see? Apparently he's going to tell us. Kirby. I don't think Kirby is a stacker.
You never know. He might have teached him the ways.
True. Ethan, you're still muted. I think he broke his headset. Did he unplug
He
something?
accidentally unplugged it from the back of his computer.
You guys can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean Kirby could stack. I mean, like knowing Kirby, I mean, like Kirby canonically is actually like has the power of a god, so he would probably just destroy the cups just by touching them. But you know what? I can pretend.
All right, and
He'll
that's
be
the end.
He'll be the first to stack a 3. No, I'm saying it right there, right now.
Yeah, true. Any other questions? This is the final. We'll take like one more minute of questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Was Max Park at Oceanside? Yes, he was. It was nice to see him there. Cool dude. Let's see. Andrew Dale's a 7.1 overall. Bro, Andrew's gonna have a 6 overall soon with shorties. It's crazy to think about.
I have one.
Yes.
Okay, so if you could go back to any tournament, this is also including WSSA tournaments. I know that like we're trying to avoid that,
I
but
don't
if
care.
you could go back,
For it.
yeah, okay, good. If you could go back to any WSSA tournament and redo that entire thing, which one would it be and why?
Worlds 2018, easy. The best weekend of my life.
Oh, just like relive the experience, not actually change anything.
Yeah, it can be experience, it could be performance, it could be anything involving the tournament.
For talking performance, Connecticut 2018. Or sorry, not Connecticut 2018, Connecticut 2017. I should have won that tournament. I completely threw it. I should have got my first 5 there. Oh well. Go back to relive any experience or any tournament. 100% would either be Worlds 2018 or Arnold Sports Festival 2019. Arguably 2 of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, and I can agree with you. I think Worlds 2018 definitely was one of my favorite tournaments of all time in terms of experience. When it comes to performance, one tournament that I would want to go back and like redo is Juniors 2017. I 333 and 363 going into cycle. I think I had podium kind of right there for me to grab, and then I blew it for cycle and I made simple mistakes. And so I wish I could go back and redo my cycle finals and hopefully grab onto that podium.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of tournaments I would redo in terms of performance based on like how poorly I did. Because frankly, like I'm not really ever too concerned with my performance anyway. You know, like I'm just there. I'm just there for the people. You know.
Of course.
But one tournament that was pretty disappointing for me was the first Baltimore Open tournament. Like, cause I did so well in prelims. Like I was top 3 in every event. And then I completely bombed every event in finals, and I was just like, well.
I think that was the event I got the 5 in, so but everything else in that tournament for me was awful. It was just the 5 that went well.
Yeah, But it would have been a fun weekend otherwise. So
Somebody asked a phenomenal question. Caitlin asked a question. If there are more female stackers, would you still combine male and female together in competing? That is an amazing question. And the answer is it depends. Because one, how many females? And two, what do the females want? And that's a question I feel like isn't getting a good answer right now, because I want whatever the top female stackers want. And I mean that truthfully, because I'm not sure a lot of the top female stackers even want to compete in their own division. Because I know for a fact that there are quite a few, not only female stackers, but few stackers with specific cases in general, where there's like only 2 or 3 of them in a specific division, and they're always the fastest one, and they're always winning, and that's not fun for them because there's no challenge for them. So do I make it more open for them? Like, do I have, do I just throw them in with everybody else so that there's no, like, you know, you're competing against everybody? Or do I make my own thing? Like, do I separate them into their own thing? Now, I want to be really careful with how I answer this, but to put it simply, I don't feel like females in this sport are that far off of males in this sport. Like, I think Seun Kim, who's I think still like the fastest overall female stacker in the world, isn't she still like top 15 overall stackers right now? Top 10?
At least.
Yeah, at least. I think, I mean, at one point she was guaranteed like top 10. I think at one point she was top 5.
I think you're right.
How many, sorry, but like just truly think about this. How many sports can you say where the female, where a female was in the top 5, top 10, top 20 at all, like in consideration for? How many sports can we consider that?
maybe
1.
tennis, yeah, like sports stacking and then tennis. And
I would think, well, I was going to say soccer, because there are some times where I think that there are some female soccer players out there that have as much talent as men do. Like, for example, I think Alex Morgan, who represents the United States in female soccer, definitely is one of the most talented female soccer players to ever live. And I put her up there too as some of the best in the world. You know, for example, like Mia Hamm, probably the best to ever live in female soccer. And those are definitely top 10, probably top 5 players at least.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I'm sure you guys understand my argument there, but like, Seun Kim is currently 21st overall. Okay. But like what I'm saying is, I don't feel like there are just a lot of sports where, you know, not only the men and the women compete against each other a lot, but like the women are like that far up in terms of like overall rankings for a lot of people. And I definitely want what's best for everybody involved. So it would just have to be something where like, where we have, again, where we have things kind of established, where we would just kind of sit all the top female stackers down and be like, what do you guys want? Do you want to keep competing against the male stackers? And do you want to just keep competing with them? Or do you want your own division? Do you want your own league? Because if we have to set the females up with their own levels of competition, either in the same tournaments or in other tournaments, that's something I'm willing to do, of course, 100%. But I want to make sure it's something that they want, you know, something that if we're going to put all that effort in, that they actually want to do it. Because I want to make sure everybody kind of gets what they want here. And at the same time, even with like Team Kim being 21st, like, oh, I think my camera froze. Hold on a second. I don't know why my camera froze, because it didn't on one side of the projection. Hold on a second. Technical difficulties. Hello? Camera? Can you see me? Oh, are we good? Oh, no, we're not. All right, you know what? Live with it. I'll be frozen for a second. Oh, of course, that's the worst frame it could have froze me on. But yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. What I was saying, like, Caitlin Quinn, or no, I think it was Caitlin, got top 16 at PCS Double Down. Yeah, she lost to Ian, got smacked by him 5-0. Who wouldn't have? You know, like, how much can you really blame her for that? It's like, I feel like there were a lot of competitors that truly, like, could have easily lost to Caitlin Quinn, and a couple of competitors that did lose to Caitlin Quinn. Now, like, I feel like, truthfully, the females in the sport have just as much potential as the guys. It's just that with all sports, guys kind of outnumber the girls. But I don't see why we wouldn't have them compete against each other as long as that's what the girls in the sport want. So ladies, of course, feel free to let me know. If that's something that you want your own division, then hey, I'd be more than happy to set it up for you. But if you don't, what's the point of going to all the effort for something that they don't want, And of course, it's kind of like, it's hard for me to make a judgment about this because it's 3 guys sitting on the podcast making that, talking about it, Hopefully my camera doesn't freeze when I do this. Okay, it didn't. So yeah, last chance. Any more questions? Any more takers?
Favorite food? No, just kidding.
Speaking of which, I want to get some ramen.
That sound good.
I kind of want a cheeseburger.
Are we going to talk about this if I can have an episode of the podcast? Maybe. Twin division. Yeah. One division exclusively for the Quins. All right, so we are officially over the 2-hour mark, so I think that is where we're going to call it for today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in to the first episode of the PYRAcast, PYRA podcast for cup stacking and podcasting dings. And thank you so much to Evan Cloud for being our first ever guest host. It was a pleasure to have you on, Evan. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Ethan as well for making it. Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're going to call it. Everybody, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, good day, good night. We'll see you in the next episode of the PYRAcast, and we'll announce more guest hosts soon on Dr. Pepper Strong.